Bob Riley, HIGHLIFE Magazine, HIGHLIFE Studio. I'm here with Masha Belinson from ACS Laboratory. How are you doing today?
I'm doing great. Thank you, Bob.
Thank you for allowing us to interview you today. So let's just jump right into this. Tell us a little bit about yourself, like where you went to school, where you live now. Are you a Florida native?
So I'm not a Florida native. I'm originally from Kiev, Ukraine. I was born there and then immigrated to Philadelphia in 1979. Lived in Philly for a while. I went to school in Washington, D.C. I went to American University for my undergrad and George Washington for my MBA. So I spent quite a bit of time in D.C. And then I moved back to Philly and then eventually moved to Florida with my future ex-husband in 1999, I think, around then. We moved here. It was really kind of still the Wild West and a lot of great nightlife. I really wasn't thinking about what I was going to do for my future. It was more like, all right, let's have some fun and move to Florida.
Nice. Well, you know, this is a very tropical paradise.
Yes.
Here we have here. Do you support medical marijuana?
I do. I'm a medical marijuana patient and I absolutely support medical marijuana.
How about adult use?
Well, I think that all use is medical use, and to call it adult use I prefer that rather than recreational use. But absolutely, I think that cannabis it's imperative for the balance in our body. Without getting into too much detail about the endocannabinoid system, it's necessary. As you know, we have receptors in our body that basically. Our DNA mimics the cannabis DNA, so we have endocannabinoid endemic receptors in our body that receive the phytocannabinoid receptors of the plant. So if we're off balance, we can get that balance from various cannabinoids, not just THC. There's many others that CBD, CBN, etc. So it is all medical because if it's missing, if it feels like there's pain or inflammation or anything like that, that could be balanced with cannabis.
Why did you decide to start working in cannabis? Do you have a personal story of a family or friend?
So I do have a personal story. It's not really something that I open with, but I did have breast cancer. Many years ago. It was in 2012, and it wasn't yet legal in Florida. After doing a lot of research on alternative medicine, I was introduced to Cannabis Oil Success Stories. It was a private Facebook group. It's still going. I saw pictures and heard testimonials of people that had gotten over. Sorry, that's my phone. It's even on silent. Should we just get it here? I'm just going to turn it off for a minute.
You want to start from scratch?
Yeah.
All right.
So.
I may still be able to use some of that for other stuff.
Well,
so what?
So if I'm a patient, you want to start there?
No. I want to start from the beginning again.
All the way in the beginning?
Yeah.
Oh shit. Okay.
Well, because this really does flow. You know?
Okay. So.
All right. Do you mind if I touch your hair a little bit?
No, go ahead. Should I get hairspray?
No. It's just.
It flies away.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I don't mean
Okay.
that.
That's all good.
Fabulous.
Okay.
Looks good now. All right. Bob Riley, HIGHLIFE Magazine, HIGHLIFE Studio, take 3. Tell us a little bit about yourself, where you were from. Sorry. Take 4. Bob Riley, HIGHLIFE Magazine, HIGHLIFE Studio. I'm here with Masha Belinson from ACS Laboratory. Thank you for interviewing with us today.
My pleasure.
Tell us a little bit about yourself, where you're from, where you went to school, and where you live now. And are you a Florida native?
So I grew up in Philadelphia and originally from Ukraine. I was born in Kiev, immigrated here in 1979. I went to school in Washington, D.C. I went to American University for my undergrad, and then I went to George Washington for my MBA. I moved here in 1999, and I live in Boca Raton now, which I say Boca is the epicenter of Florida cannabis.
Nice, nice. Do you support medical marijuana?
absolutely. I support medical marijuana and I'm a patient.
How about adult use?
Well, I think all use is medical use. I'd rather call it adult than recreational, but as you know, the endocannabinoid system, that's how our body is balanced, and cannabis is received by the body. So we have endocannabinoid receptors which receive the phytocannabinoids. So the cannabinoids are, as you know, THC, CBD, CBN, and the body needs those cannabinoids in order to be balanced. So anything like pain, inflammation, or actually inflammation, which is the root of all disease, that is helped by cannabis. And so therefore, when your body needs something, it is medical, and therefore all use is medical.
Nice, I just learned something. When did you, or why did you decide to start working in cannabis? Do you have a personal story of a member or friend?
Well, in 2012, I was diagnosed with, I had stage 2 breast cancer. I was 39, and I had always enjoyed cannabis since I was 14, and it was really stigmatized, so for many years it was hidden, and then I would start and stop, but in general it wasn't accepted. It was, especially being an immigrant, and in our communities it was highly stigmatized. So when I found out about my condition, and I was told that I had to have chemo and radiation and then surgery, and there was no other protocol. So it really became clear to me that they were just treating really the condition. It had nothing to do with me, and I started doing research. I found Cannabis Oil Success Stories on Facebook. It's this amazing group, and it's a private group. They do, you have to be asked to, in order to be permitted, you have to have a condition. So I think you have to be sick. You have to really be in need. And so in that group, patients share their stories about the type of ailments they had, specifically different types of cancers. And I'm not talking like dozens, hundreds and hundreds of stories of people that healed their tumors. 4th stage cancer with Rick Simpson oil, all kinds of remedies, pictures, testimonials, and just really, I couldn't believe it, that something so incredible had been hidden, and just hidden from the world. And so I just felt like the plant had been calling me the whole time, and I got Rick Simpson oil. And imagine being a cancer patient and trying to figure out what your path is, and then having to smuggle a medicine in a turkey baster with no instructions, not tested, having your family, your friends, everyone think that you're just trying to get high. And it's horrible. No one should have to go through that. And so, the good news is, and fast forward after 5 weeks of doing this, and being fired by my surgeons, really just doing it on my own, I did wind up having surgery, but not chemo or radiation. And when I had the surgery, my tumors were gone. They had completely shrunk. And I owe it to not just the cannabis oil, but a complete, a vegan diet, no sugar, prayer, meditation, self-care, all of that. When cancer happens, it doesn't mean you have to cut it out. It means you have to change your life and love yourself. And that includes cannabis.
Nice. When did you begin working in cannabis? What is your current job title, and how did you get your start?
So when I moved to Boca, so this was right after, 2015, amendments who passed, and then it took a while, to really figure out, well, what's happening in this industry in Florida. So I'd been living in Miami Beach, and I got divorced. I had been living in Miami Beach at the time. I got divorced.
Start that one over. When did you begin working in cannabis? What is your current job title, and how did you get your start? And by the way, it's 2016.
Oh, thank you. So I began working in cannabis 2 years ago in June. I started doing educational events, and it was right when I moved to Boca. I found out that dispensaries were banned in Boca. And after 2016, when Amendment 2 passed, I got interested in the industry, but I wasn't sure what my role was going to be. So, historically, I'd always had, even though I'm very entrepreneurial, I'd had these corporate jobs. I worked in e-commerce, I worked in banking, I worked in real estate, I was a business analyst, many times the liaison between the technology and the business. And I'd also worked on a nonprofit board where we did educational events for 7 years. So events were a no-brainer for me. It's the same program. It's basically an hour of networking and then an hour of education. You get a sponsor, you get a speaker, and then you just make it a program. So I could do that in my sleep. When I moved to Boca, it was kind of like a new start, and I really had been feeling very unfulfilled in my career. And even though I was successful and I had a great client base, and on the outside it looked like everything was great, but on the inside I wasn't happy. I wasn't fulfilled. I didn't feel like I had a purpose, and then I realized, like, oh my God, I have to do this. This is the reason why I got sick. This is the reason why I haven't, I've acquired all these unique skills, and I'm like a Swiss Army knife. There really isn't anything I can't do. Events was an easy place to start because at the time, the way that the events were being done, they were very, they were big. They were like the expos. And so for people that maybe didn't feel comfortable being around a lot of people, or they had very specific questions, or, just wanted that more of like of an intimate feeling, there was nothing for them. And so I started to do that. I didn't have any sponsors in the beginning because I really wanted to see who were the good players, who were the good speakers, who were the good cannabis companies. Started with like a tiny sponsorship, like $250 for the table in Boca. I had Investments Limited. They were my first sponsor. They donated the space. It was like I met the woman at my son's baseball game. Things just start to happen when you speak your truth, when you tell people what you're up to, and when you're sincere and when you're working with integrity, things just open up. And I was afraid that I was going to lose my old clients. We say you come out of the closet, like the green closet. So when I came out public in cannabis on LinkedIn, and I was like, oh my God, I'm going to lose all my clients and all this stuff. And, I did. Like, I'm not going to lie. It wasn't easy in the beginning, but I knew that eventually, if I just kept my word, if I showed up, if I didn't suck, that eventually, that I would succeed. And after doing events for a while, I met, so events got bigger, sponsorships got bigger, my speakers, everyone liked working with me because even though it wasn't huge, it wasn't a big production, but I really cared about my sponsors, and I always asked them, what do you want to get out of the event? And I really wanted them to be free. So whenever I could, we didn't charge the patients. If it was at all possible to make it free, we made it free. With the exception of, I did a Women in Cannabis, like a women's cannabis wellness events, which were really quite expensive to put on, the experiences, so we couldn't make those completely free for the women, but one day I hope to be able to do that. So I felt like eventually through the events I would meet the right players, and I did. Lab testing is something I was always very interested in because, of what happened to me because of getting medicine and not really not knowing, like, would you ever take something where you didn't actually know what was in it? I mean, we do all the time, right? So what's cool about lab testing, and I geek out on this, is you can look at the lab results, you could look at the terpene profile, and sure, you could look at the THC percentage, but that's not necessarily what's going to tell you how you're going to feel. And just how you take, you could take a pill and look at that prescription and know how you're going to feel every time you take that pill. Cannabis is a science, and it can be exact that way. And if you read the labs, and if you look at the cannabinoid profile, but more importantly the terpene profile, and say there's linalool, you'll know you're going to be a little bit more relaxed. Or if there's limonene and pinene, you're going to be more alert, maybe a little paranoid. Pinene makes some people paranoid. But so, like, that the patient journey, understanding, like I love that, you know, I'm fascinated with all of that and really simplifying it for patients. And so I knew I somehow wanted to work with a lab. I didn't know how. And in the beginning it was very confusing because we really didn't have guidelines. So are there rules? Are there no rules? Are you testing by the guidelines? Are they laws? Are they not laws? What's required? It takes a long time to you know, get through it. And I'm still, like, every day people call me and they ask me questions of things that I've known for a long time. And I still sometimes, it's like, well, I heard Florida is for hemp now, it's not 0.3% THC. And I'm like, wait, is that true? No, it's not true. So it's, you know, I'm always learning. No day is the same. When I'm at ACS, I was really impressed with just like how clinical they were. Like, this is not someone that, you know, was in one business last year and was a lab this year. This is like a huge facility with over 100, you know, with a staff over 100, with scientists, with huge machines, with like 19 mass specs. I mean, I had never seen anything of that scale, and then understanding really how precise it is to do the testing, to do the sampling, to do all the stuff, and then the COAs, how to read COAs. So making that easy, you know, we just, so I work at ACS now. I mean, I still do. I have other projects that I work on.
What's your current job title at ACS?
So my current job title, I mean, I hate titles. It's corporate development. It's very broad. I cover SEO, search engine optimization, which is a lot of content. It's how do people search. So I have an amazing content team, Elena and Jason, and I mean, I could never do this on my own. Gary Stein's a contributing writer. Elena Schmidt is an amazing blogger and writer, and just Jason Avera, who's been my business partner forever. Just brilliant minds. And I mean, we just geek out on this all the time. We love this stuff. So like, even late at night, you know, I'll be texting Roger like about something. I'll be like, can't you just leave? Like, but it's such an interesting, dynamic environment. So my job is to keep track of what's happening with the laws on both cannabis and hemp. So to understand it across the business, and then how does that impact the business, and then how does that trickle down to the consumer? So our clients are cannabis companies, so licensed MMTCs, like Trulieve is one of our big ones. Grow Healthy is one of our big ones. You know, we've also worked with Rise and Move, and you know, just a lot of them. And now I'm learning hemp too. So hemp is a completely different industry. People who are in hemp don't even think they're in cannabis. That's a whole different, you know. So SEO, paid search, acquisition, retention, I take care of the brand, the messaging, work with PR. So really, I do a lot. And every day is different, so I love it.
Nice. How has working in the cannabis industry itself changed your perspective on marijuana and hemp?
Well, let's see. It's a lot of work. So first I got to know the science, which of course to me, how is it made, right? Most people want to know what product is the best for me and how do I make money? So it's definitely changed my perspective and understanding what's the difference between really great products or really great marketing. We're so busy sometimes I forget what the product is, you know. I've never smoked less weed than when I started working in the cannabis industry, really, because I'm so busy all day long, sometimes I forget to smoke. And CBD, you know, understanding the other cannabinoids, so now I take CBD daily and that reduces my cravings for THC. But on the flip side, extraction, I love geeking out on extraction. So understanding, like what's really changed my perspective is understanding the industry from every facet of it, right? From cultivation to extraction to manufacturing to retail to consumer behavior. I mean, it's just fascinating. This plant, it's an economy. You know, it's really a cannabis economy. It's not an industry. And that to me it was like a light bulb that went up, you know. Being here on the ground floor is just an incredible opportunity, because most industries I've gotten into when they've been in the bubble, and we got in at the bottom. And the people, some people are amazing, some people are horrible, but you know what? You work with amazing people, and you don't vibrate with the horrible people. You're just kind of like, okay. And I'm not for everyone either, and that's okay. So I hope I answered that question.
Yeah, I think you did a great job. The cannabis industry is dominated predominantly by men. How has that affected you in the pursuit of your current job? Has it limited your ability for what you are able to do, or has you being a woman given you the ability to approach cannabis from a different perspective?
Well, I've always worked in male-dominated industries. So I started on Wall Street. Not the best experience in terms of, it's male-dominated, you don't get treated well there. And I was like, okay, that's not for me. I didn't even think that was discrimination. I just kind of thought like, well, that's how that is, and that's not for me. I've never thought about it as discrimination. And I've always worked very well with men. I love the way men communicate. It's very straightforward. I love working with men and women in different ways. And I've always been in male-dominated industries, and so I've never felt held back, and I've never felt like sexually harassed or like objectified in any way. I love, I have a kind of a crude sense of humor, so I don't mind, and like, how should I say it? Like, it doesn't offend me, I'm not easily offended. But what does bother me, and I see this, is the parity in earnings, and I see it all the time. And I spent a lot of years in staffing and recruiting prior to this, and so I saw the differences in salaries between men and women. And that to me is just like, that's there. The numbers don't lie. So what is that? I hope that we can reduce that gap, but. With cannabis, and I speak on panels sometimes, and I'm usually the only woman, and unless it's like a Women in Cannabis event, which obviously is all women speakers, but many other events are male dominated, and I hate to say it, it's a lot of white dudes, it's has not traditionally been a lot of diversity in cannabis, and the way that cannabis talks to their audience, right? So in fact, tonight we're hosting the biggest ever. I'm doing an event called Canna Familia. It's powered by Trulieve, and it's 100% Spanish speaking. Now, I don't speak Spanish, but Trulieve likes the way that I produce events, so I have an incredible Spanish team, Scala Connections, and we have 380 RSVPs at this point on Eventbrite for tonight's event, because it's 100% Spanish-spoken cannabis event addressing the stigma in the Spanish communities, and that's what really interests me, is breaking through the stigma and speaking to communities like, did you know that not a single thing was translated in Spanish when we started this project a year ago? Imagine how we have a majority, like such a huge Spanish-speaking population, not just in Florida, but in the country, and there's not like a single thing that was in Spanish. I couldn't believe that, and so I love a challenge. I love taking on topics that really like question the norm. And when we address women specifically, to address it and talk about cannabis wellness, that wasn't done. I did that last year. And then addressing the Spanish-speaking population only, we're doing it now. I'm open to working like through other cultures and speaking to different populations. I think that needs to be done. I think in cannabis, like, we talk to everyone the same way, and that needs to change. Back to the male-dominated things. So for women in cannabis, it's also really important to be firm and to know your value, and there are many people that work for free and then they get annoyed that they're working for free. Well, ask for it. You have to ask to be paid, and stop being nice and stop doing favors and then being mad that that favor didn't get reciprocated. As women, we have to stop speaking like we're asking questions. It's a statement, right? You want to pick my brain? Well, that hurts. Don't pick my brain. Would you like a consultation? I'm happy to talk to anyone for a half hour or an hour. But if they want more of my time, then they need to pay for it. And that's it. Men have no problem doing this, I noticed. So maybe that was a sexist
That's
statement.
a good pointer for all women in
But
cannabis.
it's just like, know your worth.
Yeah.
And stick to your guns. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Do you use medical marijuana?
I do. I am a patient.
Do you have a medical marijuana card?
Of course, yeah.
And of course you use CBD.
Yes,
And do you happen to have any hemp clothing?
I do. Not as much as I'm going to, but I do. I have some hemp clothing.
All right. And then our last question is, women tend to make most of the healthcare decisions in the home, yet we keep marketing to men. I call it the cannabis syndrome. In your opinion, what does the cannabis industry need to do to better market cannabis to women?
I think the cannabis industry needs to speak to women directly by understanding what they're going through in their lives, right? So you've got different segments, right? Women who are moms, they have different concerns. Women who are maybe premenopause or postmenopause, they have different concerns. They have different needs. They have different, different pains, different wants. And so if I'm speaking to a mom, so I'm a mom, and one of the things that I love to do is I love to wear t-shirts with little tiny cannabis leaves on them, because I'm here to destigmatize it. So I want people to look at me and be like, but she's a mom, how could, and the thing is, I think it's crazy that it's okay as a mom to talk about, oh, I need more wine, or mommy needs vodka, or I'm on Xanax. But it's not okay to say, I'm gonna hit my vape pen a little later, or I can't wait to come home and make dinner and clean up and smoke a joint. There's a stigma around that, and especially around mothers that are like that, because supposedly they're bad mothers, if they do that. So the cannabis industry needs to speak to women to make them feel like it's not stigmatized, like it's okay, like you're not less of a person, you're not using a crutch, and you're not a bad mom. In fact, you're a better mom. Because how can I sit there and color for 2 hours if I'm not high? I'm sorry. I just don't have, and I do that all the time. I have adult coloring books now. But the point is it's not, the way that we have to address it is an enrichment. It's something that's here to enrich our lives, to create wellness, and to bring people together. Cannabis can bring families together. My parents and my Russian Jewish conservative parents, who I never thought, we have smoked together. Sometimes I give them gummies and, or edibles. And so it's brought us closer together. And believe it or not, your parents, they're not as conservative as you think. The quickest rising population for cannabis patients is 55 and older. I did events with the International Jewish Cannabis Association with Ben, and we did a whole road show. We went to 55 and older communities, and the older women, that they had so many questions. One of the events, this woman brought a bong to the event, and I said to her, what are you going to do with that? And she said, well, I was hoping you would teach me how to use it. So I thought, yeah, I would love to teach you how to use it, just not here. So my point is, don't just talk at them, selling them stuff. Talk to them to be in their lives, to see where this fits into their lives, and then to explain how to use some of these products. Most people, they don't even know how to roll a joint properly. They don't know. We went from having no products to having hundreds of products. The best thing the cannabis industry can do for women and patients in general is to have a patient-first approach. What is this product? What is it going to do for me? How can I keep track of it? we're inundated. You know, when you have too many choices, it's like, it becomes like analysis paralysis, and then you can't do anything. And so I think clarity, understanding where women are in their, you know, in their needs. So what's, you know, the hierarchy of needs and where that appeals to them. Convenience. You know, I go to dispensaries now, and unless I order online ahead of time, I have to go and sit there. And a lot of times they won't even let you have like a laptop in the waiting room. So I'm a working single mom. I'm busy. Make it easy for me. You know, maybe put it on a revolving renewal, like, oh, and you know, if you know that I'm going in there every 4 days, send me a reminder. Oh, looks like you bought an eighth last time. Do you need papers? Do you need more? Do you need a vape? Do you need a new cartridge? Like, think about, so it's so when I used to work in music, right? If someone bought a guitar online, we would send them a note like, oh, we see you bought a guitar. Do you need a new set of strings? You know, the thing that Amazon does, we bought this. Do you also need this? There's so much that the cannabis industry can do because we understand consumer behavior. We see it. Cannabis needs to use data to make the decisions easier for their patients, you know, women especially, but everybody.
Well, thank you, Masha Belinson. I really appreciate you taking the time out of your day to interview with us.
Thank you.